Good morning again from Mount Aloysius College. I am John McKeegan, the 15th president of Mount Aloysius. It is my pleasure and honor on behalf of the college to welcome you to the second annual Agricultural Summit. This year, we are both in person and virtual, and we welcome more than 70 attendees from across the state. I will turn over for formal introductions to Congressman GT Thompson, but as an introductory matter and some housekeeping, as we move forward into the question and answers, please, at the bottom center of your screen, there is a Q&A toggle. Please use that if you would like to submit a question while the conference is underway. The Google form that we were using previously will not work. Mount Aloysius has its roots back to 1853 and is proud of its location here in Cambria County. A substantial majority of our students are from Cambria, Blair counties and the 5 adjoining counties. Even a short drive in any direction will confirm the importance of agriculture to this area, and in fact to the Commonwealth. Agriculture is the #1 industry. So we are thrilled to host this second annual conference. Our host today, Congressman Glenn GT Thompson from Pennsylvania's 15th District, from the United States Department of Agriculture under Secretary Bill Northey, the Pennsylvania Secretary of Agriculture, Russell Redding, who's joining us from Harrisburg, and with the Congressman today is the Pennsylvania State Farm Bureau President, Rick Ebert. Before I turn it over to the Congressman, let me just thank you all for your service to the Commonwealth and the nation and what you do for every citizen in the United States. So with that, Congressman GT Thompson.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 2020 Agriculture Summit. Thank you for joining us virtually. This is something we normally, when we did this last year, we were able to do this in person. A bit of a hybrid this year. President Ebert and I are pleased to be here at Mount Aloysius College. President McKeegan, thank you so much for Mount Aloysius College hosting this. I'm very, very proud of this college, proud of the students that are here and the faculty located in Crescent, Pennsylvania and Cambria County. We're just honored to be literally honored to be back here for our second annual agriculture summit. Probably last year was very successful. This year, and was important that we did this last year. Important this year though as well, since unfortunately with this times that we're in with this coronavirus, sadly the cancellation of Ag Progress. So these types of forums. And doing this in conjunction, I think Ag Progress will be occurring on some virtual platforms as well. And so I know that we're going to make this, what we experience today available for that as well. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Congressman GT Thompson. I represent the Pennsylvania 15th Congressional District. Since first being elected to the House, I've been proud to serve on the U.S. House Agriculture Committee and to support Pennsylvania's #1 industry, agriculture. As a committee member, I've served in a number of positions and had the honor to a number of leadership positions, have the honor to work on 2 farm bills during my time that have served so far. I will say we're actually preparing for a 3rd farm bill. Won't be for just a couple years yet, but this forum today, this summit today is an important part of that as we hear directly from our farmers, our farm families, producers. It's your input, your wisdom, your experience what we use to build these so important farm bills that serve agriculture and quite frankly all of rural America. Now, for a variety of reasons, times we know have been tough for farmers, landowners, and rural areas around the nation. And while this is true for many commodities, this has been especially true for our Pennsylvania dairy industry. Because of the pressing challenges before agriculture, notably in nationwide in dairy and in cotton sectors, Congress passed and President Trump signed into law a new farm bill in 2018. Now, I was proud to work on this new law, which takes a number of steps to help bolster existing programs and respond to the urgent needs in rural America. This particular farm bill actually really made history, at least for a very long time. It was the very first farm bill to actually be signed into law in the same year that it was introduced. Now, that was remarkable enough, but I don't think any of us in 2018 could have acknowledged what our country, our families, and every family in both rural and urban America would have experienced since about February or March with this coronavirus. And I think the farm bill that we did, the quality of it is really, the importance of it has really been elevated and has come crystal clear, because of, it's through those authorities that we've been able to, USDA has been able to provide some flexibility, waivers to expand access to needed assistance and services, whether on the farming side or the nutrition side. Congress has also been able to work within the what we authorized, the levels that we authorized, and so we were able to increase the appropriations within those categories as well. So I'm very thankful actually that we were able to get that farm bill done in 2018, because I'm not sure what 2020 would have looked like. It's been hard enough, but without a good farm bill, we would have been much more challenging circumstances. Now, we must ensure that farmers will always have a strong safety net and effective risk management tools available to them to help when times get tough. And one program I'd like to mention, obviously, is the dairy margin coverage. Heard a lot from a lot of dairy farmers who quite frankly have that has been an important resource during this challenging time, especially as we saw a disruption of the food supply chain. And I've heard from a number of other farmers who wish they would have signed up for the dairy margin coverage. They recognize at this point the value of that, and I suspect the sign up will probably be rather robust whenever as we go forward here in the future. This new program is much more responsive than the previous program, and I always encourage producers to take a close look at it. Additionally, it is vital that we encourage new markets, both at home and abroad. And for example, one way we can support our dairy farmers here is by opening up the school lunch program to more varieties of milk. I will say, as our kids were educated at home virtually at the end of this past school year, we have a lot of kids that for the first time maybe in their lives have actually had a good quality milk experience, as we saw the consumption of whole milk bought by parents and individuals just really skyrocket. Certainly as the kids return back to school, we need to make changes so that the kids get access to the same quality milk experience where it holds all the nutrition and quite frankly, all the taste. New trade agreements will also grow and create new markets for American agriculture. I strongly support the great work that President Trump and his administration has done to renegotiate the existing foreign trade deals, especially USMCA. The sad part is NAFTA is, I actually have staff that are not quite as old as NAFTA, which tells me it was long overdue for being updated and revamped. We have technologies that were only science fiction back when NAFTA was first signed. We have new products, we have new processing capabilities. And so for a whole host of reasons, USMCA was so important to be able to accomplish, and the President and the administration has done that. It is opening markets for Pennsylvania farmers, notably for fluid milk in Canada. As these trade negotiations have occurred, USDA has been a great partner and has supported farmers through the market facilitation program. Just as things were starting to look up for many commodities at the beginning of the year, the COVID-19 pandemic kind of came out of nowhere. I don't think the coronavirus was anybody's fault in this country. Unfortunately, it probably has impacted all aspects of our lives in a way that we've maybe never seen in the past. COVID has created great economic harm to industries across the nation, but it also has had unique impacts on our farmers and ranchers, our growers. Now, Congress has responded in a variety of ways to help businesses, families, and farmers alike to weather these very difficult times. And USDA has again been an important partner through the launch of the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, or what we refer to as CFAP. Now, CFAP has been providing more assistance to producers, but sign up ends on August 29th. I think it's important that we all work together. I appreciate my partnership with Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, with USDA, with the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. Just this past week, we were out on a farm in a neighboring county here, and in the discussions, only to find out that the farmer was familiar with CFAP from perspective of the farm to families food box, but not for the financial assistance for farmers. And so we need to continue to get the word out. We still have several weeks for sign up through August 29th, and trying to encourage all those who are involved in agriculture to understand this important program. Joining us today are three very special guests, three very special friends of mine actually as well. When it comes to agriculture, a farm needs a good, strong farm team, and we have it here today. They bring so much to today's discussion. From USDA, we have Bill Northey, the Undersecretary for Farm Production and Conservation. Prior to his service at USDA, he served as the Iowa Secretary of Agriculture from 2006 to 2014. In that role, he served as the first co-chair of the Conservation Infrastructure Initiative from August 2016 through March of 2018. A fourth-generation soybean grower, he is a former president of the National Corn Growers Association and served in various roles for the Iowa Farm Bureau. Undersecretary Northey, along with Secretary Perdue, thank you for your leadership and your unwavering support for farmers and for rural America. The assistance that USDA has given producers over the past few years has been absolutely essential. There's so much to talk about with you, and I thank you for your service and taking the time to join us today. Secondly, I'd like to welcome Pennsylvania Secretary of Agriculture, Russell Redding, to the summit, a strong agriculture partner, a friend that I've had the privilege and honor of working with for, I think for all of my time of serving here in Congress. Mr. Secretary, thank you for your time today. It's always great to be with you, and I thank you for all that you do. And thirdly, Rick Ebert, President of the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, a farmer whose farm is just outside of the Pennsylvania 15th Congressional District, but close enough you could throw a stone. He actually has an address that, if you went by his mailing address, people would include him in the Congressional District. And he's here with me to hear from you and to answer any questions you have. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Undersecretary Northey for any comments opening comments that you would like to make. Mr. Secretary, thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you, Mr. Congressman. Appreciate the invitation to be here, and great to see folks that I've gotten to know. Some of them more recently. I guess my best compliment to call me the Russell Redding of Iowa. Russell and I got to know each other as fellow secretaries of agriculture, and then Congressman, I really appreciate the conversations that we have had in your role on the House Ag Committee, speaking up for your farmers and the farmers of the country, and really very much appreciate your leadership there. As the Congressman mentioned, farm production and conservation is our mission area here that I work on, and our team, FPAC we call it. That is Farm Service Agency, so the farm programs, as Congressman mentioned, DMC, MFP, those farm programs that are part of the Farm Bill, but also have been the additional ad hoc programs that we've stood up, including disaster programs, those kinds of things. It's also our farm loans. And then another agency is the Risk Management Agency. So the crop insurance program is run out of FPAC as well. And then NRCS, so the conservation programs are run out of FPAC as well. So obviously a lot of focus in the last few months on the CFAP and trying to get some dollars out the door. Appreciate Congressman and his colleagues pushing forward some funding from CARES Act that allowed us to take some other dollars, some authority that we had to take some other dollars from CCC and stand up a program that's designed to be up to $16 billion. As Congressman mentioned, we're in the middle of that sign up right now. Thank you for getting the word out about it. Encourage all of you to get to the FSA office to see what you may qualify for. It was quite a challenge to try and stand up something very quickly right in the midst of the actual challenges for coronavirus. We didn't really know. We certainly didn't know how low the expectations for milk prices would go, that we'd see class 3 come back like it has, and yet we sure don't know what it's like going forward. Some of the other classes have not come back as much as class 3 has come back. There's regional differences. Right in the midst of that, we need to stand up some kind of a program to be able to support our producers out there. We still have folks that need to be aware of it. Right now scheduled for that sign up to end August 28th. We do have another round of commodities that we'll announce very soon, and maybe even later this week. So we want to make sure that there's time enough for folks to sign up for that. So we'll talk about whether there's some extra time to be able to do that as well. But we need folks to be able to come in, get some of that support. And in the meantime, we're thinking about that next round. One of the other things that happened in the CARES funding was $14 billion to CCC in funding that was designed to be used for coronavirus support as well. And then the congressman and his colleagues are working on some other potential funding. So we're trying to figure out how these pieces all fit together. We're working on pieces of that $14 billion right now, trying to figure out what's next. What kind of holes should we create in our round one that need to be filled in? What really has been the impact so far? And then as we go on a little bit longer, what will we see as the impact as we get into this fall and other times to be able to understand what else we need to support? Dairy margin coverage, Congressman, you're exactly right. What a great risk management tool, significantly improved from MPP. Pennsylvania was the third largest state in the number of farms that signed up for that, but we did have some farmers that wish they could go back and sign up for it. We will have that open up for 2021 later this fall. I think we talked about a date, maybe it's October, when we'll have that sign up start. It'll be done by the end of the year, and would very much encourage folks, treat it like an insurance policy. We all hope it doesn't kick in. We hoped it wouldn't kick in this year. But it really is a nice policy, like a crop insurance policy, to buy in case the unforeseen happens. And it did this year. Hopefully we'll see some additional sign up this next year. And then one of those other things that is really out of our crop insurance pool and really put forward by American Farm Bureau was a dairy revenue protection program. We had a lot of folks that signed up for that, and the break in prices was covered or significantly covered, or certainly the softened by folks participating in the dairy revenue protection program. And so you get that through your crop insurance agent. We encourage folks to look at that again, especially with some bounce back in dairy prices. It looks a little more reasonable for folks to be able to sign up for that again, and encourage folks to look at that. Again, just like crop insurance, we don't want to take advantage of crop insurance because we have a poor crop, but we sure need it when we have a poor crop, or in this case, we have prices fall out a bit. Congressman mentioned MFPs, the program to be able to help support when we lost some foreign markets. We did about $23 billion in 2 separate MFP programs. Those were ad hoc that were stood up, and certainly appreciate participation from folks in that. Let me just also mention too, we did just recently, I think last week, announced that the crop insurance premiums that farmers are due to, I believe the actual due date is September 1 for many of the spring planted crops. Interest starts on October 1. We're delaying the start of that interest for 60 days. knowing that cash flow is a real challenge to a lot of folks right now. And so want to make sure that you're aware of that. And then conservation programs. Obviously, we have about 10,000 people that work in NRCS, work a lot with folks in each of the states to look at issues, whether it's Chesapeake Bay issues with Russell and his team and others in Pennsylvania, with districts, and all of conservation is local. It needs to be different in Pennsylvania than it is in my home state of Iowa, than it is in actually Northwest Iowa versus Southeast Iowa. So we're very proud of the work that our folks are doing there, and want to make sure that you all take advantage of that opportunity, both for technical assistance, but also for financial assistance as well. So that's just a few thoughts from my part of the world, and glad to be able to hear the conversation, and great to be on with the rest of the team.
Secretary Northey, thank you so much. And again, thank you to you and Secretary Perdue and all your colleagues and all the hardworking folks that work at USDA. Obviously not just out of Washington, but quite frankly, out of our counties with our local offices here that are on the ground, in the fields, working with our farmers through this COVID-19. USDA has always done a remarkable job, but what we, starting back in March, for the very first piece of legislation with COVID-19, what we passed included nutrition support, basically put new demands on you and your colleagues. And you have certainly risen to that challenge. We have almost 50 million farm to family food boxes that have been distributed, the CFAP assistance for our farmers, all based on commodities. So thank you so much. Pleased to yield at this time to our Pennsylvania Secretary of Agriculture for opening comments, Russell Redding.
Hey, Congressman Thompson, good morning, GT. Thank you, and to my good friend, Undersecretary Bill Northey. It's great to see you and to hear you. Thank you for your kind comments, and to President Ebert, it's always good to be with you and the Farm Bureau. Very much appreciate everything that's been happening. I'm amazed, and I look back over the last 4 or 5 months. All of us have been tested, right, in so many ways, and you've mentioned some of those things this morning that were confronted us as leaders in agriculture across the states and across the nation. And to each of you, thank you for what you've done and continue to do. I think that's partly our challenge here, is that if this were the end, we would feel okay, right? Our challenge is we're sort of in the center somewhere and trying to figure out how to respond appropriately to the needs of our nation, to our state, certainly to agriculture as an industry. And I'm very proud of what has happened over the last couple of months in terms of response, what Secretary Perdue and his team, Bill, and your full team. I know the number of times that I've been on the phone or corresponding in some way with the USDA, and each time in search of a solution to whatever the problem was. And to our PA delegation and GT, thank you personally for your advocacy over the last couple of months. We're just very lucky to have you in Pennsylvania as a congressman, but also your leadership in the House Agriculture Committee. You mentioned the Farm Bill, and while there are many things that have happened since, I believe that 2018 Farm Bill gave us both a confidence in the food and agriculture system, but set this great foundation for things that we have, both in terms of our coalitions that have been built to respond to COVID, but also the programmatic side that allows for things to happen and good things to happen. So thank you for that. There's no question that this COVID-19 has changed life for all of us in agriculture, certainly our social and business relationships, and how we conduct business, and what we consider essential and what we consider life-sustaining. That has been a really important point here in Pennsylvania from the day that COVID knocked on our door, is to make sure that agriculture was deemed life-sustaining. Many of us in agriculture would term it as such. generally, but to have it as that designation was really, really critical. And for each of us as leaders, but also the larger society, we've been reminded of agriculture's role in our state and national security in these times. And maintaining access to food is the foundation of national security. We have seen it, we're living it, and that is really important. Many things that we've learned we'll talk about today, but certainly the resiliency of agriculture. I'm proud of what they've done. I've worried about them as you have night and day about how do we move from where we were when everything was in a free fall in March to a point now where at least they're stable. There's work to do, no question about it. But compared to where we were 120 days ago, there isn't anybody on this phone or in this webinar who didn't have the very serious concern of just not knowing what was going to happen to our farms as individuals, as neighbors, as a nation. And I'm pleased that the response has been overwhelming from Congress and from the President and the USDA and Governor Wolf here in Pennsylvania as well. We've also learned a lot about the complexities of our food system, the number of people who are food insecure, the level of creativity that the agricultural community has. All of these lessons are important to us as we move forward here in the fall, for sure. So I look forward to the conversation today. There's much I could say. Nothing more important than a simple thank you to what you're doing, to each of you who are with us, but also to the agricultural community who's listening. There's been an amazing sort of show of character, and the farm community has lived true to that life-sustaining label. So thank you all for what you're doing. Final point would be, as we move forward, there will inevitably be things that we did not think about, that we did not anticipate. And just want to encourage us all to sort of stay engaged, stay at the table, keep thinking about trying to find solutions to it. And it will require a level of faith and trust from each of us to get that done. I think that is a hallmark of agriculture, and it's been shown in the time of COVID. But as we move forward, we will be tested again to make sure that we can bring back our economies, to bring back agriculture, get folks back to work, but also never lose sight of the need to feed people every day and recognize that food and food access is a basic right, but it's also part of our national security. So GT, thank you again very much to be kind to be with you, and thanks for the invitation.
Secretary Redding, thank you for your continued leadership and service to agriculture and to Pennsylvania. Greatly appreciated. And last but not least, let's put it that way. I'm really pleased to be joined in studio here, this on this beautiful campus of Mount Aloysius in Crescent and Cambria County by the president of the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, Rick Ebert. He's here with me to hear from you and answer any questions you might have. And Rick, I'll yield to you for whatever opening comments you'd like to make.
Okay, thank you, Congressman Thompson. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with such distinguished guests this morning. I want to thank the President McKeegan for putting this all together and the great hospitality here at this college. So very much appreciate that. As Congressman said, I am a farmer. Have about 80 milk cows, have 100 breeding ewes on the farm now, and put up a high tunnel greenhouse to try to diversify a little bit. I have two sons at home helping me on the farm, which I very much appreciate. It gives me the opportunity to do this. I also sit on the American Farm Bureau Board of Directors and serve on the executive committee with the American Farm Bureau. So got a lot of activity going on. You know, when we entered 2020, farmers were really hoping this would be a year of recovery. You know, we've been in 8 years of a down farm economy, and things were really starting to come together. You know, milk prices were starting to come back. USMCA was signed and being implemented here in July. You know, the China phase 1 trade agreement was in place there, and farmers had a lot of hope of a year recovery and good prices and good markets. And then it seemed like the world stopped there in the middle of March when COVID-19 hit, when schools shut down, restaurants shut down. It was amazing how fast things changed. You know, one day we had markets, the next day we didn't. You know, farmers had to dump milk. You know, farmers were plowing under vegetables and fruit crops that they had, you know, and livestock producers were wondering if they had a market for their animals. It was just amazing how fast things change. But one thing for sure, you know, across all the commodities, farmers continue to do what they do best. Take care of their animals, grow their crops, make sure their workers are safe. You know, we were concerned about our workers, you know, giving them personal protection equipment, making sure they stayed healthy. You know, farmers were making these decisions with, you know, a lot of unknowns of what the next day would bring. You know, and even still now, even like Secretary Redding said, it's been 120 days. We still have a lot of unknowns and not sure of where things are going to end up or what the future holds for us. Really appreciate the quick action of Congress and the administration in addressing those needs. You know, with CFAP, the Dairy Margin Protection Program, the coverage program actually that's in the Farm Bill. You know, I was one of the fortunate ones that signed up for that. You know, I thought as volatile and crazy as the dairy industry's been, I couldn't take those risks anymore by myself. So, you know, I appreciate all the risk management tools that are in the Farm Bill for farmers. And also the Small Business Administration loans and the PPP that was out there. You know, agriculture was really never part of the Small Business Administration before. So there was a lot of changes and a lot of adaptation that they had to do to allow us to be a part of that. You know, and even with all that money that was available, you know, it helped a lot with bills, but still, you know, a lot of farmers are still being stressed. You know, CFAP money that came through, I thought, well, I'm in pretty good shape, but that disappeared really quick with things that were out there to get paid in that. But again, really much appreciate the Congress and administration for their support. You know, we're hoping that there's some more support come through. We're maybe hoping that the CFAP sign-up deadline gets extended. There was a lot of commodities that came in late. And there's a lot of people that still don't understand that program. So, you know, even though it's supposed to end here at the end of August, hopefully that sign-up period will be extended, that there'll be some more support out there for livestock producers and especially poultry producers and some other common commodities that weren't included in that. Also, we're hoping on maybe getting some legal protections for ag employers. You know, we're trying to do the best thing we can to make sure our employees are safe. And we really can't take, you know, frivolous lawsuits right now to add on to the challenges that we do have. We're hoping on looking for some support for rural health care. That's a huge important area for farmers right now. The healthcare system's been very much stressed with, you know, the closing of, you know, non-essential operations or anything. So the healthcare system is stressed as well. We're looking for more changes to the PPP program and the Small Business Administration to allow farmers, you know, so that the SBA understands where Schedule Fs are that most businesses don't have, and changes there. As the Congressman said about, you know, small meat processors, you know, the huge demand for local foods has really stressed out the small meat processors that they could use some help and some guidance there. And then a continuing, hopefully, help with ag labor. You know, when the borders were shut down, the H-2A program, we were worried whether we were going to get a labor force in to pick our crops and that throughout the year. So hopefully moving forward, we continue on addressing these challenges. And even though these challenges are new, we still need, you know, broadband improvements, you know, everybody with telemarketing, working from home, you know, that whole system We saw the flaws in it and how it really wasn't out in the rural areas. Continue with trade deals. We need to continue developing new markets for our farmers. Yes, China, Mexico, and Canada are huge markets for us, but there's a lot of countries in this world that we don't do business with yet. So we got to continue the outreach of building those markets for our farmers. And then your dear heart is dairy and schools. We definitely really need to make sure there's good whole milk into our schools and increase the consumption of milk for our children and that. So as we continue to move forward, you know, I very much again appreciate the work of Congress and the administration and look forward to working with you some more. Thank you, Congressman.
Now, Rick, thank you so much. You really did the punch list of a lot of hot items that need to be addressed, no doubt about it. For put rural broadband really at the top, because with precision agriculture and telehealth, teleeducation, all things that we've become all too dramatically exposed to the need for, let alone the commerce, and you really have certainly on the trade. I mean, we're fortunate. We're a large country. We have, I like to put it this way, and I don't claim this. I know I've heard this from someone else in the past, and maybe somebody on our panel here, but we have 340 million stomachs in this country, and there's billions around the world that need to be filled with good nutritional, high quality, and affordable food. And so a couple of pieces of legislations are hanging out there that you mentioned about our processing side, the Ramp Up Act. Certainly want to do a shout out for that. That would be that's a good, strong bipartisan bill that would would provide monies, grants for our meat processors who are more local, that we rely on, and allow them to be able to expand their existing facilities and come in compliance maybe with the USDA requirements, so that they could start to ship some of their meat out of state. And the Health Act, because you're right, our hospitals, our healthcare providers have been hit hard when they did the right thing for the communities and for our families, and they suspended those elective surgery procedures. But I can tell you, coming out of that field, practicing healthcare for 28 years before I went to Congress, that's where the resources are. That's the revenue line that keeps our hospitals afloat. And so anything we can do to make sure that we have access to quality healthcare, affordable healthcare, is important. The Health Act basically would, which is another bipartisan piece of legislation I'm proud to lead on, it would basically codify the expansion of telemedicine for our community health centers, and again, that comes back to broadband connectivity. Everything kind of comes back to broadband. That's why we really need to focus on that. Well, I'm pleased at this time to yield back to Mount Aloysius College President McKeegan for facilitate. Looking forward to hearing from those who've joined our call and see what's on their mind, what observations or questions they might have.
Thank you, Congressman Thompson. Again, thank you to all our honorable guests. As you might suspect, a number of our questions today are relating to the impact of COVID on agriculture. Again, for our participants, we're now in the mid 80s for participants in this second annual summit. At the bottom center of your screen, there is a Q&A toggle. We've already received a couple questions this morning. So a series of questions relating to COVID. This first one is directed to Congressman Thompson and Undersecretary Northey. As you know, many beginning farmers break into the agricultural industry through direct-to-consumer sales, and this marketing channel has been hit hard by COVID. Can you share thoughts about how Congress and USDA are making federal relief programs easier to access for diversified direct-to-consumer farmers?
Secretary Northey, I'll yield to you first if you'd like to respond, and then I'll follow up after that.
That sounds great. Thank you, GT. So It's a real challenge looking across all the different commodities and all the different impacts. And what we tried to do in constructing the CFAP program was look at those commodities that were taking losses, either because the markets weren't there, or they had gone somewhere and the market disappeared, and they rotted on a dock someplace. They were plowed under on a farm, and so we tried to look at those, create kind of three buckets. The market price dropped, if they left the farm and you didn't get paid for them, or if they had to stay on the farm but you had a market. And while that works generally, and it works for folks of all sizes, I'd say it probably works the least well for the small farmers that we're talking about. And it did work for some of them, but often their volumes are very small, so the dollars don't rack up very, very much. And some people would say that's because they don't have a lot of losses, but they do have losses. And frankly, their value of that crop often is much more than the commodity value in other places. And we had to set, or we did set, one price across all these different commodities. So I think that's one of those areas. As we look ahead, we'll try and figure out other ways to be able to reach and understand. I heard from small farmers that were impacted in various ways. One, in some cases, they lost restaurant business. In other cases, they did a lot more direct sales business, and we saw some real opportunities. We have to try and sort this out, not pay people who had a better experience and who increased their customers, but be there of support for those that lost customers. And so it's going to take a little bit more work for us to be able to figure out what the next round of support might be. But in the meantime, CFAP's there. If you had some losses, you lost sales, you saw some price drops. We're going to have about 150 commodities after our next round of announcement that are part of that. And we tried and separate, lettuce from arugula, and it's a challenge to get all those prices right. The price drops right, and those kinds of things, and I'm sure we didn't always, but made a real effort to do that. That program's there. We'll look at what can come in the next rounds as well to be able to help, especially the smaller producers out there that were hit.
Thanks, Secretary. Yeah, our young and beginning farmers are absolutely essential. I mean, this is about succession. This is about who will be providing us in the future of what is the most, quite frankly, what has been the most affordable, highest quality, and safest food supply in the entire world. When you look at the average age of a typical farmer, it's pushing into probably late 50s, I guess, at this point. And so we need that succession. We need young people, and not just those. We stand a little better chance with those who grew up on farms. But I've met some real aspiring farmers, young people whose family probably haven't been involved in farming for generations. That just it's in their blood. It's in their spirit, anyways. It may not be in their blood. They want to farm and they'll want to do what it takes. And so that's why we there's a real emphasis when we've done the past two farm bills. So that would be 18 and I guess 14 on young and beginning farmers, on how do we help them get access to the acreage? How do we help them with the capital financing? Because farming's a capital intensive operation. How do we help them with providing training, providing mentors? And those programs are all out there, administered through USDA in different forms that we can certainly help connect. I think our farm bureaus do a great job with that, and that's another resource there. Obviously, farmers, no matter what their tenure is, young and beginning or seasoned, how's that, Rick? You like that word? Seasoned farmers.
Almost cooked.
Yeah, almost cooked. All right. It's, there's obviously, as the Secretary said, Secretary Northey said, we want to make sure that you're in contact with, that you understand what may be available. And we understand when you're starting out, your operations may not be as large, but, you have a significant need. And so with the Paycheck Protection Program, I'm hoping we, with CARES 2.0, HEALS Act, or whatever comes out of the Senate will come to the House. I know I've been reaching across the Capitol to the Senate side. You know, I want to see that continue. There's still monies there. So that folks who have not applied, our farmers who have not applied, you know, that are eligible. We worked hard to make sure it was very clear that our farmers were eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program. There was some confusion to start with because that's a program that's administered by the Small Business Administration. And obviously our farmers and farm families are used to dealing with USDA. And I think that creates some confusion, but we've got that clarified now. The EIDL program, also through the Small Business Administration, there's some loans, low interest loans, long-term, but there's also a grant program. Now, granted, the grant's limited to $1,000 per employee, up to 9 employees, plus the owner, that's $10,000 cap. But you know what? $1,000 goes a long way if you're starting out, if you're just starting out in farming. Probably doesn't go far enough, but every little bit helps. And again, what Secretary Northey referenced, the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, or CFAP, you need to be reaching out to your Farm Service Agency, FSA. We have those in all counties. That they have a great conversation with them on how to be eligible. For PPP, you want to reach out to your local banks. Let's be clear about that. EIDL, you reach out directly to Small Business Administration, but for CFAP, you reach out to USDA local offices, FSA. Now, there are, I think there's great opportunity here in the middle of a difficult time, because most people have really been, with the food supply chain interruptions, a lot of folks are looking local to get their food. We see that happen with dairy. We see that happen with meat. It's very difficult to, I mean, there's up to a year's waiting list with some food processors until you could get, something that processed. And so because of that, I think people are really attuned, and I think people are probably having good experiences buying local, buying fresh, farm to plate. And so I think that spoke well for the type of entrepreneur that this question was based on, and that was a young and beginning farmer who wanted to break into a local market. A couple other programs, one current one I would mention for those folks, the USDA Value Added Program, which helps you not just to go beyond production, but if you want to put your foot into some processing. We see some dairy folks have used that to get into ice cream and cheeses, and I assume you can obviously do the same thing if you're raising livestock, of moving into processing. So the value added program with USDA, that's a part of what we authorized with the last farm bill, certainly worth looking at. And finally, a piece of legislation that I'm hoping ultimately will move, it is now moved to a bipartisan, bicameral actually, and that is a revised PPP, which is Paycheck Protection for Producers Act, which would really speak to the young and beginning farmers, but also just more of our small farms. A lot of dairy that operate in a net negative revenue situation just because the economics of how dairy gets paid. They have not been eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program. And if this piece of legislation, if we're successful in including this in whatever goes forward in the future, that would open up the PPP to a lot of folks that are probably in that status of young and beginning and just getting started. So great question, though. Great, President McKeegan, great question to get us started on.
Thank you. Another question related to the impact of COVID. There's curiosity about legislation like the PRIME Act, the likelihood of getting the PRIME Act into law to help farmers and small processors have an opportunity to increase local food supply chains.
Well, that's a great question. The PRIME Act is in the House. It's not really a bill that was centered in the Agriculture Committee, and there is concerns. There is a shared commitment to the fact that we need to expand local processing. Unfortunately, in this country, when you look at livestock processing, especially when you look at beef and hogs, the bulk of it, I would say probably, Rick, 90% of it is for large processors. at least one of those is foreign owned. I don't think that's a good idea, nor I don't think that's a good thing for food security for this nation. And so taking measures, taking steps to promote more local, smaller, diverse size of livestock processing is a really good idea. And I think there's an agreement on that. How we approach it, there's some disagreement. The Prime Act has some concerns because it's food security concerns, because it would just, and because it would kind of skip some of the food security safety checks that we have. Now, why is that important? You would think people could take their own risk with that, but the problem is, especially if you wind up selling food and you wind up with contamination, it only takes a couple of those cases to just across the board impact a particular commodity. It just, we've seen that in the past. I've seen that in our ability to trade. And so we do believe maintaining some type of a basic minimal safety level for food or livestock processing is important. I mentioned just earlier about the Ramp Up Act. That is a bill that actually is strongly bipartisan, and it is centric within the Agriculture Committee. The prime sponsor is a good friend of mine, the Democratic chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, Colin Peterson. I'm an original co-sponsor. We have a lot of members on both sides of the aisle on that, and that would approach it from a standpoint of providing actual financial resources, grants, not loans, but grants for processors that would want to expand their facilities, that would want to be able to sell across state lines, that would provide the resources to meet those food safety requirements as set forth by USDA. So I think that one, at least my gut tells me that one's got a lot more ability to move the Ramp Up Act versus the Prime Act.
So here's a question and a thank you, GT. Our correspondent wants to thank you on behalf of the timber industry in the Commonwealth, along with Congressman Keller and Kelly, for your recent letter to House leadership recommending additional relief for the hardwood industry. And they are curious about your thoughts on HR 7690, which would establish a payment program for unexpected loss of markets and revenues to timber harvesting and timber hauling due to COVID-19.
Well, there's President McKeegan, there's a lot packed into that one. Obviously, timber. I mean, we're Pennsylvania, Penn's Woods. We have the highest value, dollar value hardwood industry, and the largest exporter of hardwoods in all the country. And I'm really proud to represent a lot of that area and the 24% of the land mass of Pennsylvania that I have, both on private lands, state lands, and quite frankly, the Allegheny National Forest, our Pennsylvania's only national forest, which is, by the way, the most profitable national forest, kind of small compared to others, but the most profitable because of the value of our hardwoods. Certainly, they have. I have worked in concert with Congressman Keller, Congressman Kelly, Bruce Westerman from West Virginia, who, by the way, was a professional forester before he came to Congress. Who knew that Yale had a forestry major? I'm pretty impressed with that. And if he's any reflection of their alumni, they got a pretty good program. Congressman McKinley from West Virginia, and others, obviously, because unfortunately, I would say probably of all the commodities out there, and trees are a crop. Trees are it's within the Department of Agriculture. That's why USDA has the Forest Service. They've been maybe hit harder than almost any other commodity because they were not eligible for any type of relief because of the trade wars that were necessary to achieve the great trade agreements that the president signed. And that was largely because in timber, as long as the tree stays healthy, it just gets larger and therefore increases in value. The part of the timber industry that's been hit so hard is the processing. And that's why bills like 7690 make a lot of sense. Because if you lose your sawyers, your sawmills, your forest products, it doesn't matter how valuable your trees are. Those trees will never make it to market, and that the decimating impact on, number one, the rural economy economically with the loss of those jobs, the loss of those owned assets as trees are allowed to burn up or rot or blow down, the environmental impact. You know, I'm very proud that my service, I've helped to promote the largest carbon sinks in the world, and that is a well-maintained, regularly harvested forest, or quite frankly, farmlands that we use good, healthy soils, cover crops. That takes carbon out of the air and manufactures topsoil. And so we do need to look at this. Another issue I will say that they're facing is workforce. And I've been very pleased to sit down with the administration. We just had folks in from advisors to the president in a small meeting that we had probably about, I guess, 3 weeks ago now, 2 or 3 weeks ago, looking at the impact of the visas. President Ebert talked about the H-2A visa for agriculture. Unfortunately, when it comes to forestry, they have to fall in another category. And that category has been restricted during this coronavirus. And so we right now do not have the workforce to replant forests. You know, and that's it's a significant amount of trees that need to be replanted and work in other aspects of the forest product. So we're leaning on the administration, working with the administration. I wish this was solely in the realm of USDA, because USDA gets things done. Unfortunately, this is in the Department of Labor and Department of Commerce, and I think eventually we're going to get there, but they don't understand as well as they don't understand the issue as well as USDA understands the issue. And then finally, I want to say I'm hoping. I was really pleased with what we've been able to put together on the Senate side. It was in the CARES 2.0 proposal. It was an additional $20 billion for agriculture commodities. That's in direct appropriations to farmers, and then of course recharging the Commodity Credit Corporation, I think with $14 billion, I believe. And the language that was there also opened those resources up to processors. Which you know, it goes hand in hand in food supply, and quite frankly, perhaps that I don't think that was the intent of who authored that language. I think it was more for like ethanol plants and perhaps other processing, which are so important. But in my mind, it may open the door for some of our forest product processors as well.
So the next question is directed to Secretary Redding, and our participant notes that there has been a significant increase recently in local sales in the southeast part of the Commonwealth, specifically Chester County. But as items have become more readily available in the grocery stores, some of the support is dropping off, making it difficult for producers to know what to expect as we continue to move through the pandemic. And the specific question is, does the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture have any plans on a support local campaign that we can help disseminate at the local level? Is this something we could partner on to do consumer outreach?
Yeah, great question, and thank you. It ties into some of the former exchanges there from our new and beginning farmer and direct to consumer sales, and you know, some of the silver lining, if there is one, inside this pandemic, is sort of the recognition of agriculture and local food. So the short answer is yes, we do, and we are working on that, but would welcome input and thoughts about what that looks like, both on our PA Preferred program. We are teaming up with the vegetable growers in this month of farmers markets and promoting them. We're open to ideas, and I would just say if you want to, please reach out directly to me and share your ideas and thoughts about what that could be, what it needs to be. But we're also trying to take advantage of the rediscovery of local foods and agriculture that's occurred in our system at large. So we want to help you and want to pick up with some of the promotions that clearly got interrupted here, but we want to re-engage on PA Preferred for local foods and making those connections to local markets.
Thank you. Another participant indicates that she saw a recent Treasury report indicating that only 25% of CARES funds had actually been spent, including $1 billion that the state of Pennsylvania has not spent. And her question is for everyone on the panel to speak about how much, if any, funds that were allocated specifically for agriculture have not yet been spent, and to offer thoughts about when and how it would be. And another question related, will unused agriculture allocations end up rolling into spending for non-ag related uses? And that's either at the Fed or the state level.
Yeah, let me just mention in Pennsylvania, the CARES Act funding, 50 million of the CARES Act funding was allocated by our legislature and Governor Wolf for agriculture. 15 million of that is for the dairy assistance, and that was for milk that was discarded. There's a $5 million of dairy that's specifically for the agriculture surplus system and purchasing of dairy products that cheese and finished dairy products as part of the CARES Act. There's state food purchase money as well as the fresh food financing. I can tell you that in each of the programs of the 50 million that I've just mentioned for agriculture in Pennsylvania from the CARES, I think they're going to be over subscribed, with maybe the exception of dairy, just because the way it is written. But I know that there's been conversations already occurring about how to reallocate those dollars for agricultural commodities in Pennsylvania, some of which have been mentioned here this morning that maybe didn't get the initial support either from Congress or USDA or state. So our hope is, though, that the entire 50 million would be allocated for food and agriculture in Pennsylvania.
Well, let me just offer my appreciation to Secretary Redding and the state legislature for the fact that they took a significant portion of what we put into the CARES Act specifically to the states. I think Pennsylvania received, I think we did 150 billion or maybe 100 billion, but it was Pennsylvania's share was about 4.7 billion. And the fact that the state obviously identified, that agriculture is our #1 industry, and but if you're dealing with economic impact, I mean, it is important, obviously, in this, I think, in this crisis, to look at all industries, but your top priorities, the one that's providing more jobs when you look at the food supply chain that's out there, and also critical jobs. Every job in agriculture was life essential, whether from the farm and the farmer to the person working in the grocery store and the convenience store, and everywhere in between, processors, truck drivers, warehouse workers. And so I appreciate what the state did. I will also say that right now the local portion of that went out to the counties, and it was significant monies that came out to our counties. Our county commissioners have broad discretion on what they can use that for. Obviously, it needs to tie back somehow to the impacts, financial impacts, and local impacts of this virus. And I would encourage our farmers to weigh in with our county commissioners. I've seen some really good creative things in my district that are being looked at. Anywhere from certainly a recognition of the absolute proven need for better connectivity. Been working with our local county commissioners, getting their input. Actually introduced a bill as a result of that, because right now they're challenged with spending what monies they have by December 31st of 2020. Well, for some things you can do that on, but for really connectivity projects, rural broadband projects with adequate bandwidth to support commerce and healthcare and education platforms, it's almost impossible. So I've introduced a local act. Really pleased, actually, Senator Grassley just introduced my bill on the Senate side, so which is a pretty good sign when you get somebody of his stature doing that. And we have, it's a bipartisan bill, and it would basically provide for those local dollars an additional 12 months in order to basically show that you're obligated on a project. You know, maybe not 100% completed, but that is, you've proven that's what you're going to do. And so, but there are other monies that may be out there, and I do think that our farmers are working so hard each and every day. They really haven't had the time to weigh in with their local officials. I really appreciate when farmers, when I get to visit them in the district or they come to Washington, I know what a sacrifice that is for them to do that. But this is a time when they need to make their voices heard at the county level as well. Because I would say in most of the, not all, but most of the majority of 67 counties in Pennsylvania, agriculture has to be the #1 industry. And so the farmer's voice needs to be heard. And who knows, creatively, what kind of assistance could come that way. I've seen other counties, they're doing grants to businesses, small businesses. Our family farms certainly count as small businesses, so they should be paying attention to that. I've seen you know, counties that are putting together grants for our nonprofits because they're struggling so much. So they have a pretty good flexibility and would offer that. And then I don't know if Secretary Northey may have any insight with you know, the goal with CFAP as it was rolled out was it was just 80% is what our farmers who have applied have received. Not knowing how fast this fund that we provided would be exhausted. There was a reserve of 20%. I'm hoping that we're getting closer, maybe making the determination that we'll be in a position where that remaining 20% may be able to be issued to those farmers that already received the 80%. I don't think we're quite there yet of probably USDA making that determination, but Secretary Northey, I don't know if you have any insight into that or not.
I do to some degree. So overall, the 16 billion that was put together for CFAP was 9.5 billion of CARES money, and then 6.5 billion that hadn't originally been designated towards CARES that came from CCC. We have spent about 6.8 billion of that so far. So the last 20% would be, you know, 1.6 billion more. And as you say, Congressman, I think we're pretty close to being able to look at that and say we will be able to go ahead and okay that last 20%. No producer needs to do anything to be able to do that because they signed up for that originally. We sure hope that certainly folks continue to come in and get signed up for that program. And then the 14 billion that also came in the CARES Act didn't actually come to USDA until July. And that's a program we're talking about doing next as well. And we'll see how that all plays out here in timing. So that has not yet been spent, but didn't come here until really towards the end of July. And then there's the other programs that we talked about. DMC kicked in, dairy revenue protection kicked in. We had about $500 million there that would have been farm bill money or program money that kicked in to be able to support. We'll see some extra dollars go out in our PLC in October as well, because we saw a price drop from what expectations for prices would be. And then I think the last question that the questioner asked, will some of this money get moved to non-ag uses? I don't see that happening with the USDA dollars. These are dedicated towards, you know, Congress can do what it needs to do, and there's a lot of need out there. But I think Congress expects us to spend this on supporting agriculture. We all know we're short so far of being able to compensate producers for the kind of impact they've had. So if it doesn't get spent in these programs, I think it's likely to get rolled in to future coronavirus ag support programs. So I don't see it going towards other places. They may go with other formulas here, but it certainly is needed in the ag community.
Thank you.
If I could just mention the question noted that there's $1 billion that the state received that's of CARES Act funding that is not allocated yet. That is correct. That was agreed to between the governor and the legislature, given the uncertainties of COVID and not fully appreciating where all the impacts were, that they would reserve $1 billion of that until the fall to make decisions about where to allocate it. So that is $1 billion that's still there for COVID and COVID response, but as of this point, unallocated to a particular need.
The next question relates to the president's executive order and its impact on the potential for new or more support for farmers. Will Congress still work on a package that helps rural America?
Well, yes, is the short answer. I think I appreciate what the president did. I think it was out of frustration because of, the negotiations are going on. This is my understanding, my perspective. Negotiations are occurring in the Senate, and because anything that, everything we've done actually has started in the Senate, and I think that's the nature of the Senate right now. It's unfortunately bills by and large that come out of the House have been very extreme and catered to the most extreme part of the Democratic Party, quite frankly, and so they were more about messaging. They weren't really practical. It's sad, but kind of the reality. And so anything that we've done since March that's been meaningful has had to start in the Senate. And the Senate by nature needs to get 60 votes. That means it's got to be bipartisan. I think that things are so close. I don't know if it's 90%, but there is agreement on a significant amount, and including the agriculture issues, the $20 billion for additional direct support for farmers, recharging of the Commodity Credit Corporation. I actually think within the negotiation, I was listening last night to Secretary Mnuchin was speaking, and even on the nutrition side, there's significant more monies there that have been agreed to, well beyond what the Senate had in their proposal of the CARES 2.0 or the HILS Act. But there are a few things, and mostly was the things that the president did the executive orders on over the weekend. I'm hoping that his unilateral action that he took serves primarily to bring all parties back to the table, so that we can he addressed about 4 or 5 different areas. They were needed, things that needed to be done. But the better vehicle for those items, obviously, is in a piece of legislation that passes the House and the Senate. And there's a lot of things that weren't addressed in his executive orders, including a lot of things that are important to agriculture that needs to be done. So, while I certainly support that the president was frustrated that there were some in Washington that were putting politics before people, and that's why he took that executive action. I hope it motivates all the parties at hand to come back to the table and get this done. I know we've been in the House, we've been given 24 hours notice, or we will be given 24 hours notice to go back to Washington, because this bill will have to pass out of the Senate first. I do appreciate the Senate Republicans. They have been, we have folks at the table, and they have been accepting, taking a lot of our ideas. That's why some of my legislation I worked on actually was part of the part of the CARES 2.0 as proposed, or the HILls Act. I've already told them I only need about 4.5 hours notice, and I want to stop for a cup of coffee on the way down, but I can be down there rather quickly if they, when we get to the point, and I hope it's very soon that we can vote on this and get it to the president's desk.
Thank you. As was mentioned earlier in the summit, building rural broadband capacity is so very vital to farm businesses. Thoughts from the panelists on the chances of this capacity being enhanced in the reality of a post-COVID budget and post-COVID world?
Well, I know this is a huge goal for the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. President Ebert, you want to talk about what your members are saying, our farmers and farm families, of why this is so important that we actually finally get this done, that last mile connectivity.
Yeah, thanks, GT, and thanks for the question. Yeah, I mean, farmers are looking at, direct sales. They need that connectivity. We're into precision agriculture now, that we need that connectivity to be able to farm. I know there was even one farmer that had put robot milkers in, and you connect with your cell phone to make sure everything's working properly. And once they got everything put in, they didn't realize that they didn't have the cell service to support that system. So as become more competitive, we need that connectivity out in the rural area to be able to produce food more efficiently, and direct market. A lot of people start to rely on direct marketing, and if you can't relate to your consumer on a computer or the process that you want, one of the areas that we're really pushing is with sort of the Rural Electrification Act that was back in the 30s, whenever, to get electricity out to the rural community. We're hoping to make that process happen too with broadband.
Yeah, I think that's a great model. In fact, there's a rural electric co-op, Tri-County, I believe, up in the northern tier, who just embraced this and in the process of putting fiber in and doing a great job. And I think that is a great model because of how they finance. That was an initiative that was created by Congress in the 1930s. I tell you, if Congress would have never done that, there would still be portions of the United States in the rural areas that we'd have no electricity, because there was just, the electrical companies, the power generating companies, they were interested in making money. So they focus on the more densely populated areas. And I have to believe today that it's just as important to have broadband connection as it is to have electricity, because of precision agriculture and agriculture is science and technology, but it's also access to healthcare. It's also access to education. It's commerce. I have one of my goals as a leader on the agriculture committee. Two of my visions is, number one is to restore a robust rural economy. Number two is to repopulate rural America. To stop exporting young people, but instead of our young people, have them find opportunity here, but also attract people here from urban areas that have never lived in rural America. We have so much to offer here. We have, we have jobs today, and I know there's temporarily some issues with this coronavirus, but that's largely because, they were told they had to shut their businesses down. That we're going to beat this coronavirus. We're going to have a vaccine sometime during flu season. I'm pretty confident of that. And these jobs are just waiting to be filled right now. It's not like there's not the demand. It's just, unfortunately, government has sort of stepped on the toes of job creators and said that you can't have them right now. But in order to do that, we need connectivity. Part of my, one of my priorities for rural America really is making sure that we get that last mile connectivity. So we have as much confidence with that as what we do with electricity in all parts of rural America. This virus has pointed out, it's really emphasized how important it is. And starting, I think, with the earliest coronavirus aid relief that we did, we put monies in for the Reconnect program, which expands on what we do with the rural utility services. Thank you to USDA for administering that. And that's building of a broadband infrastructure and working with commercial companies to do that. I had mentioned a lot of my county commissioners have identified connectivity as one of their #1 issues. They just need more time, more flexibility to get that done with the CARES dollars they have. So that's why I'm hoping the local act that I've introduced will give them an extra 12 months. And part of the issue, though, I think, is the fact that the connectivity has just kind of creeped up on us. It was, it just emerged. 20 years ago, it wasn't an issue, but it's amazing how it's become such a part of our life. And because of the way it emerged, we haven't had a single laser-like focus on addressing last mile connectivity like they did with electrification, the Rural Electrification Act. And instead, we deal with connectivity in silos. So yeah, USDA, which I'm proud of the work they do with the Rural Utility Service, and they've got a silo that they invest and help with. The Commerce Department, FCC, obviously has a silo. Department of Health and Human Services has a silo of a lot of money for connectivity. Department of Education, same thing. Department of Defense, same thing. That may be, I think the inefficiencies of doing it that way in silos is why we haven't been able to get the job done. So my vision is in the future, and I really see the Agriculture Committee, since most of the wiring that needs to be done, now whether that's fiber or whether it's Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi type approach, I see USDA taking a prominent role in that and bringing it together like a laser so that we can focus on these last mile areas that either do not have connectivity, or the connectivity is so insufficient, the broadband width, it really doesn't support these. There's not a platform there for these programs that we need to have, whether it's commerce or education or healthcare or anything else that's out there. So we invest a lot of monies as a nation in connectivity. I think we can just do it in a way that perhaps is more effective.
Yeah, I mean, the push there is, the private and public dollars partnership to get it done, to get it complete.
Yeah, and I know the state of Pennsylvania has been a great partner in this as well. Secretary Redding, I appreciate the commitment to this that Pennsylvania has shown. I don't know if you have additional thoughts you may have on the question of connectivity.
Well, I just would share a couple of things in the interest of time. I mean, I would hope that, in this post-COVID era, there is not a more important issue, right? We have found it's a great equalizer. And there's so much inequity in being able to connect, whether you're the farmer or you're the unemployed, worker trying to find work and stay connected, on and on. So to the question of what comes out of this, I hope that is the turning point for our conversations about broadband, the need for it both in urban and rural areas. The person I really appreciated who spoke to this is the CEO of Land O'Lakes, Beth Ford, and it just had a phenomenal, in which she talks about it both as a consumer and in agriculture. And the Governor Wolf, and her have had conversations that led to the bipartisan effort by the governor with the governor of North Dakota to send, with 16 other states, letter to the president and congressional leaders on this point of broadband. Very constructive, but very critical that we take this effort. That's the letter's focus, and I'm hopeful that we can pick this up in a post-COVID era and have something good come out of this called broadband. Thank you.
So a final question, and before I do that, I want to thank our panelists, Undersecretary Northey, Secretary Redding, President Ebert, and particularly Congressman GT Thompson and his staff for organizing this second annual agricultural summit. An explicit part of the mission of Mount Aloysius College is to respond to community needs with quality programs of education. It has been an absolute honor to listen and learn from the thoughtful and informative dialogue from all of our panelists today. So thank you all very much. The final question, and because of time, it's for the entire panel. We'll ask for brief comments from the entire panel. And the question is, how can we partner with the federal and the state governments to recruit the next generation of farmers? Again, thank you.
Great question. Secretary Northey, you want to take first shot at that?
Sure, glad to, and certainly I second all the comments on broadband. You all know what a passion it is for Secretary Perdue. And I would argue in some ways broadband's a perfect example of the kind of infrastructure that we need for our young farmers and kind of the technology that they will be facing throughout their life as well. And so I just think it's, there are real challenges to beginning farmers to get started. One of the things we have engaged a lot on is beginning farmer loans, direct and voluntary loan and guaranteed loans. About half of our loans that we make at Farm Service Agency, 2.7 billion last year, the 5.7 billion loans were to beginning farmers. And they need capital, GT, as you said before. They need capital to get started. We need to be able to create markets, create local opportunities. All of us need to encourage. It is tough. If you've ever been an older farmer, you started as a beginning farmer, and you went through some challenging times. There's plenty of times when you wonder if you can go ahead and continue or you should give up. And the encouragement to take it on, the help for folks as they have ideas, the support that we need to provide them, like all of us together in all our roles, it's very important for us to do it. Now, we need to then provide some real hard incentives like low interest loans, like any kind of tax credits to be able to help existing farmers, to be able to rent to beginning farmers, other kinds of facilitating methods, and we're certainly interested in being able to help in that. Certainly the Beginning Farmer Loan Program has been a big focus for USDA.
Secretary Redding?
Yeah, I'll just say thanks for ending on this question, because if we get caught up in the COVID, it's really nice to know that we're also looking forward, right? We're looking beyond that and trying to inspire a new generation to step in and be those essential workers and be that life-sustaining industry that we need. There are a couple of things in Pennsylvania. One, with our Pennsylvania Farm Bill, and you've heard me talk about that, just the opportunities for planning, for investment. There right now is a beginning farmer tax credit that is available for Pennsylvania farmers. So you can go to our website, you can look at the details, but it was inspired by the discussions between the governor and the chairman of the Senate Ag Committee, Elder Vogel, about what we can do to bring a new generation in. So it's the beginning farmer tax credit. There's also tax credits for rental opportunities there for farmers. So a lot of good things going on, but really appreciate the question and keeping our eye on the future and inspiring people to do this job that we very much appreciate. We need them. Thank you.
Thanks, Secretary. President Ebert.
Yeah, I think, Pennsylvania is very unique. We have a huge population of 12 million people, close to a lot of farm ground. And I think for the young farmer, has a tremendous opportunity to start farming in Pennsylvania. I think one of the first places we need to start is get back into our schools and let our students know the opportunities that are out there in agriculture. And there's a lot of good paying jobs in agriculture that they don't realize. But all the support out there, we're sort of changing a little bit in our dynamics of Pennsylvania agriculture, instead of from the traditional, dairy crops, which all are very much important. But I think for a young farmer that is very entrepreneurial, very innovative, can have a huge opportunity of creating an agricultural business and doing direct marketing, and looking at other opportunities out there. So I think there's, huge opportunity for a young person if he's first made aware of the opportunities in agriculture, and then having the support of USDA, the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, and business planning from our colleges and that. So I think there's tremendous opportunity for the young person to get in agriculture and make a good living at it.
No, I agree with all those remarks. I think this is a very exciting time actually to recruit young and beginning farmers. And, you know, and quite frankly, if you're going to recruit them, there has to be an incentive. There's got to be a carrot out there. And to me, it's opportunity. Quite frankly, coming out of these past 120 days, I think a majority of people in this country, for probably the first time ever, would say there's never been a better time to live in rural America. You know, just, you know, with the COVID, can you imagine sheltering in place in a 600 square foot apartment? And the fact that, you know, now that we, once we have this cloud or fog of coronavirus and we have a vaccine that's behind us, where we have confidence to move forward, you know, the job opportunity here, the access to jobs that we do through agriculture education, through career and technical education is just incredible. Not only that, I think for a lot of people, you know, it's, you know, agriculture has to blow its own horn. I mean, the jobs, and I said this once before, the jobs that we're talking about, the opportunities that we'd like to create for people to help recruit them, these are all life essential jobs. These things were so highly valued during this pandemic. And that's a great selling point, I think, for young people who want to be challenged, who want to contribute to the greater good. And quite frankly, that work in agriculture, that comes with working pretty hard sometimes and long hours. At the same time, there's got to be a financial reward to it. And I think we're on the cusp of that. I know that agriculture has had some challenging times, but these trade agreements, so foreign markets, domestic markets with farm to plate, where people are turning to their local farmers and farm markets to get their food. Those are great. Quite frankly, the financial returns on that are really good for our farmers when they're able to achieve that. So we need to continue to work on that. And then quite frankly, there's more that we need to do. Obviously, the connectivity, which we've talked about. We also need an environmental policy that is a regulatory policy that is reasonable, not over the top. It should be for a specific purpose. It should lead to a final outcome for practice and not just be used as a hammer on our farmers and our farm families, our ranchers and those ranch families. Because unfortunately, the regulatory policy, you know, I always look at our regulatory policy as kind of a smelly onion, you know, and no offense to onion growers, but it's just layer on layer on layer, and we don't take anything away. We don't take things away that are unnecessary anymore. They're inefficient and ineffective. And we need to begin to peel that onion back and make this a reasonable regulatory regime. So, so that was I agree, that was a good final question to end on, because it's a looking forward question. Well, I think that our time has long come and passed. Thank you for all those who are participating. I just want to give a minute or so or whatever comments they'd like to make. I'm so appreciative to this panel. They are great members, great farm hands. We're all part of a farm team. We're there with you. Those who are watching in, they're farmers and ranchers and involved in agriculture, food supply chain. You know, we all work together for this. So first, my thanks and any closing comments to Undersecretary Bill Northey. Bill, thanks for being on a part of this summit today.
I appreciate it, Congressman. Thanks for the invitation, and certainly encourage folks to get to their FSA office, their NRCS office, or crop insurance office, and be able to take advantage of the programs there. CPAP is scheduled to end at the end of the month, and be listening. Soon you'll hear some more commodities added to that. And also continue to reach out to us, continue to reach out to the Congressman, to Farm Bureau, to Russell and his team with ideas that you'd have. Help us understand other ways we should be trying to help. I think we're not at the end of the programs to help. They don't all fit, but they fit better if we understand more of those challenges. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be involved.
Thank you. Russell, thank you to you. Thank you for being a part of this. I'm getting around with both Russell and Rick that I spent more time with them by Zoom than I did with my wife. They've been very, just very kind in including me as they've reached out to farmers during the past 4 months here across the Commonwealth. And so thank you for that. Thank you for being part of this, and thank you to your staff as well. And I'll yield to you for any closing comments.
No, I'll do very simple. Thank you to what Undersecretary Northey mentioned. I think the key now, given what we have learned over the last couple of months, what we see on the horizon, the discussions we've had this morning, that level of engagement, working across our levels of government from local to state and federal, keeping that conversation open, but always looking to the future and how do we deal with the concerns that we know we've got to confront, but also always be thankful that on this journey of agriculture, there have been an amazing obstacles overcome, and the perseverance has never been greater. So we take that as our energy and our spirit as we move forward. So thank you, and Mr. President, thank you for hosting as well. GT, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Russell. And Rick, thank you for your leadership with Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, and all of your staff, and quite frankly, all those volunteers who make that Farm Bureau such a force for good for our #1 industry here in Pennsylvania. Much appreciated. Thanks for being part of this forum. And I'll yield to you for any closing comments.
Thank you, Congressman. Very much appreciate being part of this forum, and very much appreciate Undersecretary Northey and Secretary Redding for all your comments and your support and your partnership for the farmers. You know, without you, a lot of us wouldn't survive. And you always have an open ear to the farm community, trying to understand, you know, where we're coming from, our needs out there, and appreciate the response that all of you have given us during this COVID time. And we look forward to working with you more and more, hopefully get past this COVID. I'm sure there's still more impacts to be seen from it, but look forward to working with the issues and you guys in the future. So thanks again so much. And thank you, President McKeegan, for allowing us to have this here. So thanks so much.
Rick, thank you so much. Just some final thank yous for me. Thank you to all our farmers and farm families here in Pennsylvania for what you do each and every day to provide us with affordable, high quality and safe food, fiber, energy materials, building materials. You are the definition of life essential, and you're appreciated. Thank you for all those who took time out of busy schedules to Zoom in with us today. Your participation, your questions were insightful, and you're much appreciated. Just a shout out to two of my staff members that really worked hard to make this happen. Andrea Verobich, Brian Subich, thank you. They do a great job. You know, I've learned a long time ago, it's really important to surround yourself with people that make you look a whole lot better than what you really are. And my staff do that, and these two did that with this summit. And finally, just thank you to Mount Aloysius College, President McKeegan. We are just so blessed. I'm so blessed to be able to have an educational facility like this in the Pennsylvania 15th Congressional District. And you all are in the business of changing lives and launching futures. And thank you for your hospitality of having us on campus today to base this. Thank you to all of our technical staff from sitting here looking at. I'd love to be surrounded by people who are a whole lot smarter than I am. And these folks are making it happen here with the computer screens and the keyboards today. So with that, I'll turn it back over to our host, President McKeegan.
Thank you all to the entire panel. We're very grateful for your insights, your thoughts today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we're looking forward to hosting again next summer, live and in person, when we can shake hands and engage in robust discussion as we're all accustomed to. But again, thank you all to the entire panel for your service to the Commonwealth and to the nation. and it's been our privilege to host this second annual summit. Take good care.